Hello there, folks. How you all doing? Jeff C here on Thursday, June the 20th, coming to you with the latest on the TPP. Do you know what the TPP is? Have you heard about the TPP? Well, you're going to want to know because it's going to affect you if you happen to live in several of these super powerful countries that are getting together and finding out ways, well, let's just say the multinational corporations that tend to run these countries are working hard to come up with their own rules and laws so that your own country rules and laws can't protect you. Yes, this is what globalists do. We've seen it time and time again. While we're consumed with all these fake flags, false flags, these bombings, stories that are going on. I mean, little stories that get blown up into big things. The real big picture are these trade agreements that are going to break down barriers and eventually just eliminate the whole idea of nationhood, that exists as we know it today. So I've wanted to get into this for quite some time and kind of had it on the back burner. No longer. Now we need to really look at this. So coming here from Global Research Center, this was an article that was published on June the 5th, giving a little bit of introduction to what this whole TPP thing is. Here we go. Did you know that Barack Obama has secretly negotiating the most important trade agreements since the formation of the World Trade Organization? Did you know that this agreement will impose very strict internet copyright rules, ban all Buy American laws, give Wall Street banks more freedom to trade risky derivatives, and force even the more domestic manufacturing offshore? Yes. If you have not heard about this treaty, don't feel bad. Obama has refused to even give Congress a copy of the draft agreement, and he has banned members of Congress from attending negotiations. Even Congress is left in the dark, but they're pretty useless anyways these days. The plan is to keep this treaty secret until the very last minute, and then to railroad it through Congress and have it signed into law by October. This is how they do it. How many times have we shown this? They'll secretly prepare these things, and then they'll stick them on the back of some huge long bill that'll be hundreds of pages long, and nobody will read through it, and they'll pass it through, and next thing you know, hey, guess what? You're now could be sued by corporations from other parts of the world for maybe downloading a song. It's something as stupid as that. The treaty is known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and nations that are reported to be involved in the development of this treaty include the United States, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Peru, Brunei, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Opponents of this treaty will refer to it as NAFTA of the Pacific, and if it is enacted, it will push the deindustrialization of America into overdrive. I thought it was already in overdrive, right? Really. One world, such a common theme on Free Radio Revolution. The one world economic agenda that Barack Obama has been pushing is absolutely killing the U.S. economy. As you will see later in this article, we are losing jobs and businesses at an astounding pace, and each new free trade agreement makes things even worse. Well, it doesn't make things worse for the billionaire multinational corporations and their owners and the Bilderbergers and groups like that this is their whole thing, right? Let's break up the countries. Let's take control of everything. Let's divide and conquer. Let's bring in all these secretive trade agreements that people in their own little countries will have no freaking clue that all of a sudden they are no longer going to be protected. This is dated from today. It's on the same site, Global Research, right? The Trans-Pacific Partnership Global Corporate Coup, Assault on Democracy and National Sovereignty, right? According to Ron Kirk, a former U.S. trade representative, making the text public would raise such opposition that it would make the deal impossible to sign. Exactly. I mean, how many times have we heard it from the likes of David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski? We got to keep these things quiet. We got to keep everybody else distracted while we are destroying their national sovereignty, right? We have here, we talked about it in length. One of our longest podcasts here was on the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, which 99.999% of Canadians have never heard of. And that is the reality of today. 99.999% of people have no idea who is, well, maybe not that much, but most people have no idea who is really running the show. The Canadian Council of Chief Executives was all about basically destroying Canadian sovereignty, right? It's an utter joke. You have corporations that have completely rewritten all the business laws in Canada. Nary a protest raised, right? Because most people just wouldn't get that information from the Grope and Fail or the National Post, right? Because they own those things. Quite simply, right? They own the news, so they don't want people to hear about what they're doing. So they fill the news with all kinds of crap, right? Candy-coated crap, and get people to talk about Kardashians and stupid stuff like that. So let's look a little bit more into this article here. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a global corporate coup that makes corporations more powerful than governments. Absolutely, that's already the case, and undermines our national sovereignty. While the public and media are not allowed to see the text and members of Congress only receive limited, heavily restricted access, 600 corporations have been advising the president and suggesting amendments as they have full access to the documents. These include America's worst corporate citizens. Oh, Monsanto, the most evil corporation on the planet. Walmart, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Pfizer, oh, Big Pharma. Wonderful. Cargill, Exxon Mobil, Chevron. Wow. Jeez. Yeah. You got it, folks. It's the who's who of psychopathic, out-of-control international corporations. The Green Shadow Cabinet is putting forward a critical, in-depth analysis of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. See links below. Top people in their fields, movement leaders, academics, researchers, and activists are writing about the specific aspects of the TPP and how it affects virtually every aspect of American life. The Green Shadow Cabinet is about halfway through its analysis, with more statements coming over the rest of the week and into the new weeks. This type of in-depth analysis we need from people informed on the top so that the public can become informed and joins in the campaign to stop the TPP. Yes, absolutely. I haven't really heard of this Green Shadow Cabinet, but I'm starting to like the sound of it right away. That they are some sort of watchdog that is really digging into this. Some of the members of Congress are making their way through the bureaucratic process that allows them to see text but not allow their staff to do so, nor does it allow elected officials to make copies, take notes with paper or computer, because they don't want you to know anything. I mean, they're terrified if people find out what's going on, right? That could threaten, jeopardize their plans to push these things through. I suppose what people could do, especially in the United States and here in Canada, is contact your representative, your MPs, or in the United States, your congressman. Fucking badger the heck out of them. Get them to know that this thing is fucking evil. It took Republican Alan Grayson Florida 6 weeks of negotiation with the U.S. Trade Representative to finally review the text on June 17th. He was only allowed to see an edited version of the text and was not allowed to bring any staff with him. Look at this. This is just it. These are the same assholes that tell us, you know what? It's okay that we're going to spy on you and we're going to watch and record every fucking thing you do on your phone, on the internet, with your tablet, with your phone calls, everything. Because really, if you have nothing to hide, then why are you afraid, right? You've got nothing to hide, so why should you worry? And these assholes are hiding everything from everyone. They don't even want these congressmen to see what they're up to. This is the way the globalists function. Grayson told the Huffington Post that Obama administration classifies the documents to prevent discussion of the contents. Of course, they don't want you to know what the fuck they're going to do to you. They maintain that the text is classified information, and I get clearance because I'm a member of Congress. But now they tell me that they don't want me to talk to anybody about it because if I did, I'd be releasing classified information. While we appreciate Grayson for going as far as he has, members of Congress need to break the silence and share the contents with the American people and all the people of all the nations that are taking part in this fucking hijack of our national sovereignty. It's just madness. From what has leaked, the TPP will give corporations control over every aspect of our lives and make them more powerful than governments. The non-transparent approach to something so far-reaching is an assault on U.S. democracy, which we know by now has been almost completely destroyed. As Senator Elizabeth Warren said when questioning the new trade representative, good for Elizabeth Warren. I have heard the argument that transparency would undermine the trade representative's policy to complete the trade agreement because public opposition would be significant. Warren explained. In other words, if people knew what was going on, they would stop it. This argument is exactly backwards. If transparency would lead to widespread public opposition to a trade agreement, then that trade agreement should not be the policy of the United States. But let's be honest, right? People who listen to the show regularly know by now that it's corporations that run this fucking planet, and governments work for these corporations. These shadow governments run. They get together in groups like the Bilderbergs and many other secret meetings, and this is where they come up with these ideas, these plans, and then they fucking try to shove them through, sneak them through back deals. Is there any other way that banksters operate? Right? I mean, you go back to the formation of the Federal Reserve. What a sick joke of a name. The Federal Reserve, the private bank that prints American money and basically runs the United States, that they met in secret in 1913 on Jekyll Island. A fitting name for their meeting. In fact, they actually wore fake mustaches and you know, used pseudonames and, you know, Mr. Brown, Mr. Pink, whatever, because they knew what they were doing was so fucking evil that if people had any idea, there would be riots all over the streets and people calling for their heads. So they do it in secret. Every fucking time. Democracy? It's a fucking joke. This is what is happening. Now, I said the Canadian Council of Chief Executives before, and how they had completely rewritten all business laws. In fact, they even went so far to make sure that class action lawsuits could not be launched against them. They've rewritten the business code to basically detooth anyone or any group from having any sort of contention with their power. They meet with the Prime Minister about 30 times a year. 30 times a year. Now, they said 600 corporations are involved in this. I guarantee you that the 150 members of the Canadian Council of Chief Executives are definitely in this nasty, nasty fucking deal. Grayson pointed out the irony and hypocrisy of Obama's administration approach. What I saw was nothing that could possibly justify the secrecy that surrounds it. It's ironic, in a way, that the government thinks it's all right to have a record of every single call that Americans make, but it's not all right for American citizens to know what sovereign powers the government is negotiating away. Exactly, it's exactly what I said before. This is, you have to have a psychopathic sort of mindset to be able to carry this shit out. You have to have no respect for humanity. You have to be you have to believe in the complete antithesis of democracy, right? To do this kind of shit. You have to be just plain outright fucking evil to be able to do this stuff. This is how they do it. We've seen it so many times, you know. And I'm happy to see that there's a lot of media that is actually reporting on this right now. It's all coming out. A lot of these articles are from the last few days. Here's Margaret Flowers writing for Al Jazeera, and she's saying the Trans-Pacific Partnership undermines health system. Medical corporations seek tools to protect their profits despite harmful effects on public health. Exactly, right? Big Pharma. They're not interested in helping people. They're interested in their own profits and growing their own enterprises. This is just one element of the TPP. Let's read a little bit about her article here. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a deal that is secretly being negotiated by the White House with the help of more than 600 corporate advisors and Pacific Rim nations, well, including Australia, and we've mentioned all these countries before. While it is being called a trade agreement, the U.S. already has trade agreements covering 90% of the GDP of countries involved in the talks. Instead, the TPP is a major power grab by large corporations. The text of the TPP includes 29 chapters, only 5 of which are about trade. The remaining chapters are focused on challenges that multinational corporations have not been able to pass in Congress, such as restrictions on internet privacy, increased patent protections, greater access to litigation, and further financial deregulation. I have a feeling that like these things like SOPA and PIPA and shit like that, I mean, they want to push them through. There's no doubt about it, but really they use them so that they get everybody focused on that, and then if they get defeated, then they got this working on the back burner, right? This is the real thing. This is what it's really about, right? You think these corporations are content with being, you know, within Canada or within the United States and having to go through the hoops and all that to be able to, you know, ship their manufacturing to third world countries where they can use, you know, sweatshops, right? Because we don't make anything here in our countries anymore in the West, right? It's all being made in China. It's all being made in Vietnam and places like that. This is the whole idea for them. How can we make it so we can make even more money and get more control and keep an eye on every single human being at the same fucking time? So far as it's known, the contents of the TPP is from documents that have been leaked from NGOs and industry meetings. Unlike other trade deals, the White House refuses to make the text available. Of course, we've already discussed that. The White House is completely overrun by Goldman Sachs and other massive corporations that have set up their puppet president, Obama, who is wonderfully psychopathic enough to be able to do all this to his own people and not even flinch. In fact, negotiations refused to publish the text until 4 years after it is signed into law. Why are they being so secretive? Former U.S. Trade Representative Ron Kirk said he opposed making the text public because doing so would raise such opposition that it could make the deal impossible to sign. That's what we said before, right before in the other article. I wanted to get to the part here where they're talking about medical. Oh, here it is, right? One thing to be clear is the impact of the TPP on healthcare. The intention of the TPP is to enhance and protect the profits of medical and pharmaceutical corporations without considering the harmful effects their policies will have on human health. We know that the TPP will extend pharmaceutical and medical device patents and provide other tools to keep prices of these necessities high. This will make medications and treatments unaffordable for millions of people, already is, and raise the cost of national health programs, which are almost already completely out of reach for most struggling people. At its worst, the TPP will provide a pathway to infect the world's health system with deadly parasite of for-profit health corporations that plague the U.S., right? It's exactly what's happened to the United States. You have let the corporations, the pharmaceutical, dare I use the psychopathic word again? The completely evil, right? Pharmaceutical corporations that have completely dismantled any sort of fair system that might have existed in the United States and replaced it with something that is so fantastically out of reach for the average person that it really is one of the worst healthcare systems in the world. And the whole Obamacare makes it even worse. And all this to protect these pharmaceuticals, these massive monster corporations. Through the TPP, pharmaceutical and medical device corporations are seeking extensive patent protections using the process known as evergreening. You ever heard that term before, evergreening? The TPP gives 20 years of patent protection for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. However, patents can be renewed for another 20 years each time there is a change in the indication or delivery. For instance, if a drug is indicated for headaches, but then the pharmaceutical company finds out that it is also helpful for stomach cramps or makes it a capsule instead of a tablet, a new patent may be issued. In reality, patents can be extended indefinitely under the TPP. So they just want to take control of all of that, right? Doctors Without Borders criticized this practice, stating that the patent protections in previous trade agreements raised the price of life-saving medications and made them unavailable to people in poorer countries. Patents prevent the production of low-cost generic forms of medications, yet it was the availability of generic medicines to treat HIV and other infectious diseases that allowed the advances to be made in decreasing their impact in developing countries. Interesting to hear from Doctors Without Borders. They know exactly what this means. It means that people will not be able to afford getting the treatments. They'll become so out of reach because pharmaceutical companies, these mega monster corporations, are concerned with their bottom line more than anything else in the world. Because of the negative impact on public health from patent protections in previous trade agreements, such as the Korea Free Trade Agreement, former President Bush rolled some of these practices back. Unfortunately, the TPP will move them forward again. Here's another thing that it goes further than previous agreements by also requiring that surgical techniques, medical tests, and treatments be patented. Let's patent everything. Let's make it so that nobody can do anything without having to pay a lot of money to these mega corporations. Is it any wonder they don't want you to know a goddamn thing about it? Is it any frickin' wonder? These are the deals that are being signed all the time. Another good example is just recently Obama signing the UN gun law there, right? Which he didn't tell anybody, right, when he did it. All these things that completely subvert, for instance, the Second Amendment in the United States. Doctors With Borders also expressed concern that patent protections encourage the innovation based on profit instead of the needs of the people, particularly those in poor nations. Corporations do not see it as in their financial interest to address health conditions more prevalent in poor nations, which do not have the financial resources to buy their products, But it is often in these situations that treatments can have the greatest impact. They don't give a flying fuck about the impact of the quality of life. Let's be honest, right? They don't give a flying fuck. They want to make money off you, and they want to make as much money as possible. They are outright evil. And attacking public health systems, because then all of a sudden you're saying, like here in Canada, your Medicare system will fall with underneath this, and then what do you know? All of a sudden you can't afford your medications. All of a sudden governments think, well, we could set prices. No, you can't, because you're signed on to the TPP. An area of great concern is the language within the TPP concerning state-owned enterprises. These are institutions that are fully or partially owned by governments. SOEs are very common in countries such as Vietnam, Malaysia, and Singapore. Corporate lobbyists are concerned that the SOEs have an unfair advantage over private industry, right? Why should these state-run things that they're there to provide services for people who probably wouldn't be able to afford them? Why should they have the ability to do that? Let's destroy that ability and let's make it nothing but profit. And fuck the people who can't afford their medications or get their treatments or have their surgeries. Fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck them in the ear. Fuck them in the other ear. Pardon my French. So these advantages. Okay, I said that. Let's take a little look more. I mean, there's so much here to cover. We talked about Alan Grayson before. Here, in an article posted on the article from the Huffington Post, Alan Grayson on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Obama secrecy hides assault on Democratic government. Progressive Democrats in Congress are ramping up pressure on the Obama administration to release the text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a secretive free trade agreement with 10 nations, amid intensifying controversy over the administration's transparency record and its treatment of classified information, because that administration is so completely out of control and is so intent on destroying national sovereignty, so intent on being able to watch every single human being, not just in their own country, but everywhere else as well. It's just madness, how out of control. But that's what happens. When corporations take over governments, this is what happens. If you think like a corporation, you think of nothing but control and power. The only public information available, well, we kind of discussed that before. Let's talk about here what Alan Grayson told the Huffington Post on Monday. Members of Congress have provided with only a limited access. He viewed the edited version of the negotiation text last week, but that secrecy policies at the Office of U.S. Trade Representative created scheduling difficulties that delayed his access for nearly 6 weeks. Yeah, it's just scheduling difficulties. We gotta figure it out. Give us a few more weeks, Gotta figure out how to prevent you from getting this information. Then finally they give it to him, but nope, you can't take any notes, you can't bring it home with you, you can't look on the computer with it, can't share it with anybody, can't have anybody with you. Better have a good fucking memory, right? Maybe as a photographic memory, you can print the whole bloody thing out, but somebody's got it. The Obama administration has barred any congressional staff nurse from reviewing the full negotiation text and prohibited members of Congress from discussing the specific terms of the text with trade experts and reporters. Staffers on some committees are granted access to portions of the text under the committee's jurisdiction. So here's a quote from Grayson. This, more than anything, shows the abuse of the classified information system. They maintain that the text is a classified information, and I can't get clearance because I'm a member of Congress, but now they tell me that they don't want me to talk to anybody because if I did, I'd be releasing classified information. Kind of said that before, but bears repeating. And here they, of course, make reference to Edward Snowden's recent disclosures of the NSA and how they're spying on you and they're watching everything you do and da 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 da. But this is what they do. Isn't it ironic? Isn't it ironic that the government thinks it's all right to have a record of every single phone call that Americans make, but it's not all right for American citizens to know what sovereign powers the government is negotiating away? Of course. Of course. You know, the irony is it's stinging. It's just out of control. The fact that Obama hasn't been thrown out of office and into a prison cell, or at the very least into a court and charged with treason against the Constitution, against the Second Amendment, against, now as we've seen here, against the rights of citizens, against the Medicare, all these things that will be just destroyed. They're talking here about the intellectual property chapter of the deal linked online more than a year ago. Internet freedom advocates criticized the provisions as problematic for tech companies and free speech, while public health experts said it would dramatically restrict the access of life-saving medicines in poor countries, which I covered just before. Yeah, I mean, I did a podcast on the entertainment industry and how they had written this talk about dark. It was this new copyright law that they whole thing that they wanted to do is to be able to go into people's computers, right? This I can't remember the exact name of the document, right? But I looked at the document, I read through it and put it up on this podcast. I'll try to put a link below. It was one of the most belligerent things I've ever seen. They actually were saying that what they want to be able to do is to go and put malware, spyware, all these rootkits. I don't even know what rootkits are really, but all these things that would go into your computer, infect your computer, Trojans, right? That they wanted Congress to allow them to do this, so that if by chance you had anything on your computer that somehow you didn't pay for, right? Or you didn't have the patent for, right? You didn't pay for, they could fuck you up. They could screw your computer. They could destroy your computer. They could literally set off a sort of chain of events that would just destroy your computer, would freeze it up, and then the police would come and arrest you. And that was their solution. I mean, you're talking about a thing that was about 140 pages long. And the whole thing was about how we need to attack every single person out there who has a computer. And that the government should allow us to do this because we're super powerful corporations and we're putting lots of money in your pockets. There's no end to it. The Policy Mike here has got another article on it. This is from a few days back. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is the Obama administration keeping secrets about its new trade agreement. Well, I don't think I need to go into that because it's pretty fucking obvious. Here is the Green Shadow Cabinet, dissident voice here, and how they are really digging into this. For 3 years now, the Obama administration has engaged in 16 rounds of secret negotiation. 16 rounds to develop the TPP. Those negotiations have included hundreds of representatives of global corporations. The TPP negotiations have excluded representatives from the vast majority of American people. It is a fact that the TPP is a global economic policy for the 1% at the expense of the 99%. That's a fact of life now, isn't it? Right? Isn't it at that point right now where you just feel like there's almost nothing we can seem to do to stop these corporations, these horrendous corporations, from destroying our national sovereignty, from destroying our planet? creating wars all over the place, especially in the Middle East, take control of all the oil, probably kicking off a major war very soon, starting in Syria. These are the same assholes, all right? It's the same freaking jerk-offs that attend the Bilderberg meetings and hang out with Kissinger and Brzezinski and the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. So today, all 5 branches and 81 members of the Green Shadow Cabinet began to act in concert to not only defeat the TPP, but to show America that another government with another global economic agenda is possible. There is an alternative to the corrupt political establishment that produces economic terrors like the TPP. Our cabinet's proof to the alternative. I haven't looked into this Green Shadow Cabinet, but as I said, thank God they're doing this, you know. If you oppose the industrial farming practices of Monsanto, farming practices, right? That's a polite way of putting it. Cargill and other food giants and agribusiness corporations, with their intense use of toxic herbicides and other harmful chemicals, production of untested genetically modified food, efforts to control the seed supply and patent life, their pollution of the water, air, soil, and food supply, then you must oppose the TPP. If you know, Monsanto alone, anything that Monsanto is doing alone, just Monsanto, you should oppose with every fiber in your body. You know, but let's be honest, Monsanto is not alone in being an evil, psychopathic corporation that wants to depopulate the planet and feed us food that has no nutrient value and has all the nutrients extracted from it and full of the genetically modified organisms that create sicknesses, autism, all kinds of degenerative diseases, cancers, huge tumors. I mean, how many times have I talked about it? I'm like a broken record here. But I have to keep reminding people because there might be somebody who just logged on to Free Radio Revolution for the first time and is hearing this. It's so hard to put it into words how important it is for people to stand up to this kind of stuff. If you oppose the actions of the big banks and the financial institutions that led to the world economic crash, exploding wealth inequality, the greatest wealth inequality in the history of the world, risky investments that endanger the economic future, and their ability to dominate national policies, then you must oppose the TPP. If you are committed to protecting the rights of working people to a living wage, the right to organize, and to safe working conditions, then you must oppose the TPP. If you favor free and open internets where free speech is protected and creativity and communications flourish, then you must oppose the TPP. If you understand healthcare as a human right and that inflated prices of pharmaceutical drugs should not be protected by law, then you must oppose the TPP. I like this article. If you want to see the air, waters, and lands protected from toxic chemicals and pollution, and know the ecological crisis of species extinction and environmental breakdown must be reversed, then you must oppose the TPP. If you would live in a world where local, state, and national governments are allowed to take urgent action to deal with global climate crisis and to implement a Green New Deal, then you must oppose the TPP. Well, I just said, how can I put it in words? I think they did a great job here. Yes, it's all that. It is all that. It is all this and more. This is the big picture. Talk about the big picture all the time here on Free Radio Revolution, and really, this is the big picture. The corporations are trying to destroy national sovereignty, and they are trying to keep us all as powerless serfs, basically, right? On land that we don't own, buildings that we don't own, the buildings that are owned by our banks that could be seized at any time. How out of control has it gotten? You know, it is unfucking believable. I talked about Elizabeth Warren before. Let's see if she's got something important to say
Senator
here.
from Massachusetts. I rise today to talk about trade agreements and the impact they have on our economy. Trade agreements affect access to foreign markets and our level of imports and exports. They also affect a wide variety of public policy issues, everything from wages, jobs, the environment, the internet, to monetary policy, pharmaceuticals, and financial services. Many people are deeply interested in tracking the trajectory of trade negotiations, but if they don't have reasonable access to see the terms of the agreements under negotiation, then they can't have any real input. Without transparency, the benefits of an open marketplace of ideas are reduced enormously. I am deeply concerned about the transparency record of the U.S. Trade Representative, and with one ongoing trade agreement in particular, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. For months, the Trade Representative who negotiates on our behalf has been unwilling to provide any public access to the composite bracketed text relating to the negotiations. Now, the composite bracketed text includes proposed language from the United States and also from other countries, and it serves as the focal point for negotiations. The Trade Representative has allowed members of Congress to access the text, and I appreciate that, but there's no substitute for public transparency. I've heard the argument that transparency would undermine the Trade Representative's policy to complete the trade agreement because public opposition would be significant. In other words, if people knew what was going on, they would stop it. This argument is exactly backwards. If transparency would lead to widespread public opposition to a trade agreement, then that trade agreement should not be the policy of the United States. I believe in transparency and democracy, and I think that the U.S. Trade Representative should too. So I asked the President's nominee to be the Trade Representative, Michael Froman, 3 questions. The first, would he commit to releasing the composite bracketed text? The second, if not, would he commit to releasing a scrubbed version of the bracketed text that made anonymous which country proposed which provision? And I want to note here, even the Bush administration put out a scrubbed version during the negotiations around the Free Trade Area of the Americas Agreement. And third, I asked Mr. Froman if he would provide more transparency behind what information is made available to outside advisors. Currently, there are about 600 outside advisors that have access to sensitive information, and the roster includes a wide diversity of industry representatives, and some from labor and some from NGOs. But there is no transparency around who gets what information or whether they're all getting the same things, and I think that's a real problem. Mr. Froman's response to my 3 questions was clear. No, no, and no. He will not commit to making this information public so that the public can track what's going on. So I am voting against Mr. Froman's nomination later today because I believe we need a new direction from the Trade Representative, a direction that prioritizes transparency and public debate. The American people have the right to know more about our negotiations that will have a dramatic impact on our working men and women, on our environment, on our economy, on the internet. We should have a serious conversation about our trade policies because these issues matter. But it all starts with the transparency of the U.S. Trade Representative. Thank you, Madam President. Just the absence of quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Yeah, great job, Elizabeth Warren, one of the few nominated representatives out there that is actually trying to speak out against what's going on. It's if we're going to listen to our own governments, they're going to tell us how wonderful this thing is, right? The Government of Canada, Trans-Pacific Partnership members in advanced negotiations in Vancouver. The Honorable Ed Fast, Minister of Trade, International Trade and Minister of Asia-Pacific Gateway today, marked the conclusion of the Trans-Pacific Partnerships from June the 16th, which took place in Vancouver from June 14th to the 16th. As governments committed to opening new markets to increase Canadian exports to fast-growing regions around the world, we are proud to be playing an active role in negotiating the ambitious TPP agreement that advances Canadian interests and brings jobs, growth, and prosperity to all TPP countries, said Minister Fast. I am pleased to report that the sessions held in Vancouver have helped move these important negotiations forward. That's what they'll tell you. We had, when we covered the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, we had John Manley telling you how wonderful the Canadian Council of Chief Executives was for Canadians. It's great for Canadians. Great for Canadians. But then, of course, at the end, he was saying, wow, the idea of national sovereignty, well, it's kind of outdated. It's good for breaking things up, but really, we don't really want Canada. We're not, we love Canada. This is great for Canadians. It's great for 150 Canadians, right? It's great for them. Fucking wonderful for them. It's the best thing in the world for them. And they're the richest people in the country. And they run the country. And they meet with the Prime Minister 3 or 4 times a month. Right? And who the fuck else gets to meet with the Prime Minister like that? Right? Well, the people that pull the strings for the Prime Minister, the people that run the country, right? And they don't just run the country because these are multinational corporations. These corporations want to grow. They want their power. They want to control the entire fucking world. It all comes together. When we talk about the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, One World Government, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, the Rand Corporation, There's so many of them, but they're all part of this agenda to destroy national sovereignty, to take over the world, to effectively turn people into sheeple, which they already are for the most part, and to take away all their rights. To have an elite group of eugenicists running the entire world, depopulating the world by, vaccinations and GMO food, which they won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Right? You think Bill Gates eats GMO food? Although he's the largest stockholder in Monsanto. But he won't touch GMO food. None of them do, because they know what it is. And they know what the fuck's going on. When evilness rises, and take it one step further with this GMO, because it's all connected, right? When Monsanto is one of the major corporations that is behind this whole Trans-Pacific Partnership, it is because they know how evil and guilty they are, and that they need these laws to protect them from the outrage that will be rising when people realize what GMO food is doing to their children, let alone themselves. Here, this is how they would be able to compromise the National Milk Producers Federation. The National Milk Producers Federation Board of Directors last week approved a resolution in opposition to any Trans-Pacific Partnership agreement that does not provide a significant increase to access to Canadian dairy market. As part of the resolution, the NMPF's board also urged the U.S. Trade Representative's Office and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to negotiate an agreement with Canada that eliminates barriers to trade and provides mutually open dairy markets. Now, why I'm bringing this up is important, okay? Because one of the things that Canada did stop from entering into their markets was the bovine growth hormone that is found in American milk, right? The steroids and whatever they're pumping into the cows to make them bigger and to produce, make their mammary glands or whatever, they're make them produce incredible amounts of milk. And people put that in their breakfast cereal, and then they have their breakfast cereal with their GMO'd corn sugar and everything else that is in there. They want to have access to the Canadian dairy market. So this National Milk Producers Federation, obviously American, right? And they are going to use the TPP to try and break into the Canadian market. This is exactly one example of how these things all our things that are protecting our own national sovereignty will be destroyed. When we get to the point where your government, your people can't even have control over the laws protecting their foods because you have signed on, you've traded away your right to be able to protect your own people, because now you've given the right to Monsanto, you've given the right to all these ExxonMobil, all these huge, nasty, criminal multinational corporations that care nothing. In fact, let's be honest, care nothing about national sovereignty. They loathe national sovereignty. They loathe people being awake. They loathe people standing up to them. And this is why they are hiding everything about it. They need to hide this from us because they know that if we know what the fuck they're doing, we will stop these motherfuckers. Right? We will stop them. And that is their fear. And that is why they must keep it a secret. This is extremely important. It really is. It's so important that we understand how they are doing these things, why they are doing these things, when they are doing these things. It is vital. If we cannot stop these things, then we will find ourselves completely powerless in no time at all. And we will find ourselves at the mercy of these psychopathic multinational corporations from hell who want to see humanity depopulate itself. And they want complete fucking control over everything. There is no end to their quest for control. All right. That's all for now. Please try to push this around if you can. Not just this video, but anything, any information. This is important. These things are huge. This is the big picture. These are the big pictures. This is, while we go on about Boston bombings and Sandy Hook and all that shit, those are relatively small things compared to what this will do and the power that it has. Once these corporations have these kind of deals in place, there'll be nothing to stop them. Nothing, unless the people rise up, right? And what are the chances of that happening? All right, so leave your comments below and have a wonderful day.
Both Mexico and Canada have been invited to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, which is an ambitious 21st century trade agreement that will now include 11 countries. And this agreement holds enormous opportunities to boost trade in one of the world's fastest growing regions.
Hello there, everyone. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth TV. Over the last 60 years, there has been a concerted effort by the global elite to formulate a one-world government incrementally through various trade deals. From the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs to the Free Trade Area to NAFTA, CAFTA, and the SPP, these deals have been advancing globalization at an alarming rate.
Canada now has the support of all participants to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations.
The TPP already includes 9 Pacific countries with a combined GDP of over $17 trillion. With Canada and Mexico joining in, that would rise to over $20 trillion. Prime Minister Stephen Harper has pushed hard to join the TPP and today won the support of its key member, the U.S. But Harper would not say what Canada had to agree to join the talks. In addition, some of the terms of the TPP deal are already agreed by the other parties, and Harper cannot change them.
Now, we have agreed, Terry, there is an accession process, so we don't disrupt the negotiations. We're obviously not going to try and undo what's been done. But these negotiations, in our judgment, are at fairly preliminary phases right now.
The TPP is being disguised as a trade deal, when in reality it amounts to a global corporate takeover, where if implemented, the mega corporations would have the power to lower food standards, raise the prices of medicine, censor the internet, and have more influence and control over individual governments. This agreement has been discussed in secret for the past 2.5 years. However, a leaked document has recently revealed the nefarious agendas of the global elite.
A chapter from the draft agreement leaked Wednesday outlines how it would allow foreign corporations operating in the United States to appeal key regulations to an international tribunal. The body would have the power to override U.S. law and issue penalties for failure to comply with its rulings.
It's been branded as a trade agreement, but really it is enforceable corporate global governance. The agreement requires that every signatory country conform all of its laws, regulations, and administrative procedures to what are 26 chapters of very comprehensive rules, only 2 of which have anything to do with trade. The other 24 chapters set a whole array of corporate new privileges and rights and handcuff governments, limit regulation. In the last negotiation of a big regional agreement, that was the Free Trade Area of the Americas in the 1990s, 34 countries, very complicated agreement. 2 years into the negotiation, the entire draft text was published officially by the governments. Here we are 3 years into this negotiation with 8 countries, and they will not publish a sentence. In fact, it finally leaked that they had signed a special agreement not to release any draft text for 4 years after negotiations are done. Under NAFTA's system, which has some of this, $350 million have already been paid out to corporations by governments over toxics bans, zoning laws, timber rules. This is a sneaky outrage, and if people actually put a spotlight on it, we can stop it.
These are the provisions that allow a corporation to sue a national government if it feels it is not getting the treatment it would be entitled to under NAFTA. The first case against Canada under the investor state provisions was a suit brought by Ethel Corporation from the US that was wanting to market in Canada a gasoline additive called MMT, which is a suspected neurotoxin.
It was stated by our government that we're going to ban additives to fuel that involve methylmanganese because it's harmful to individuals neurologically and otherwise. It's been linked to attention deficit disorder and other problems. But when we passed those laws, the Ethel Group sued our country, said, how dare you pass laws that restrict our trade, and even we're doing it for the benefit of our own country.
Well, Canada, the Canadian government responded to that suit by effectively apologizing to Ethel, by paying them $13 million US in compensation, and by withdrawing the ban. So it didn't even have to go through the full adjudication process before Canada backed down.
This is an agreement that ultimately could have the whole world in it as a set of binding corporate guarantees of new rights and privileges enforced with cash sanctions and trade sanctions. It is not an exaggeration to say that the TPP threatens to become a regime of binding global governance. This is an incredible corporate power tool. It's only gotten this far because it's been secret, and people in the other countries don't want it either.
SOPA and PIPA were defeated in the U.S. Congress because activists around the country saw what was actually being negotiated and in the bills and said, we will not accept this. And so what you see now, and that's what we're concerned about overall with the TPP and these trade deals, is it's a backdoor way of these corporations to get things they actually can't get through our democratic process.
The anti-counterfeiting trade agreement was recently voted down in the European Parliament, so let's keep that momentum going and continue to expose the TPP for what it really is, a global corporate takeover.
Thank you, Mr. Co-President. That's the second time today that you have ignored me when I was expressing good manners, standing up and doing the appropriate call for a motion. I wish to call attention to Chapter 6 of the Rules of Procedures, Interruptive and Procedural Motions, Rule 191, Suspension or Closure of the Sitting. This morning I raised this point before you. You stood up and walked away. You left me without answering my question. If 40 members of this chamber decide to stand up at this moment, we are entitled to have a vote on whether we suspend the motions and sitting today on the disgraceful treatment we have had over TTIP. This will send out a strong message to our constituents that we are supporting them. So I am asking that 40 members of this chamber stand up, and we are entitled to a vote to suspend this motion under Rule 191. Will 40 members please stand up if they support that opportunity?
Allora, questa mattina la sua richiesta è...
Thank you very much. This morning, you requested to take the floor once the session had already been suspended. On the basis of Rule 191, you are suggesting that 40 members can request the suspension of the session, and I therefore have to put this to the vote. I shall therefore proceed to do so. We shall have a roll call vote on the question of whether the session should be suspended. If you vote yes, you ask for the suspension of the session. If you vote no, you're against it. The vote is open.
La votazione è chiusa.
The vote is closed.
La proposta è stata respinta.
The motion has been rejected. We shall therefore continue with the voting session.
Richiamo al regolamento, onorevole, la parola.
You have the floor, sir, for a point of order.
In base al regolamento, l'articolo 100...
On the basis of Rule 152 and Rule 190, I would like to raise a question of interpretation. If you decide to postpone a vote and a discussion to a subsequent session, you need to say when and where the debate will take place. This was not done in this instance. Therefore, I request that this is rectified, and I would request that this matter is put to President Schulz. We need to know when the debate will take place.
Translation, I can say also in English if you want. È necessario in base al regolamento.
On the basis of the rules, it is necessary on the basis of the rules to indicate the date and time at which the debate and vote will subsequently take place. This was not done. Therefore, I now request you to tell us when will we debate TTIP and when will we vote on TTIP. As I understand it, it is to be referred back to INTA, to the committee, at its next meeting, and I would request that you therefore put TTIP, the debate and vote on the agenda for July. Thank you. President, this morning the debate was not on this matter. It was simply the debate was on the basis of whether the debate should be deferred because the President had already decided that the voting should be deferred.